Now, according to the Met Office, last night was the coldest of the year. I know we're only 19 days in, so it's pretty early to be calling it. However, it may not be the first. The cost of heating our homes has increased, and the price cap is due to rise from £2,500 to £3,000 from March. Wholesale gas prices have actually fallen, and yet the cost of energy isn't. Well, how does that work? We are constantly told that green and renewable energy will bring our prices down, improve our health, and save the planet. It sounds lovely. But can it work? And is it working? Joining me to discuss net zero and the cost of living is self-proclaimed King Gammon. Oh, don't say gammon. I don't like that. That's wrong. You can't say gammon. Gammon is racist towards white people. Stop doing it. And the voice of the public, June Slater, and leader of the climate party, Ed Gemmell. Ed.
Laurence, very nice to meet you. What an introduction. Gosh, couldn't have seen that one coming.
Bit much? Do we think?
Amazing. Thanks. Definitely. I mean, the woke thing, I definitely woke up. You had me there, I tell you.
Right. Talk to me about climate change, Ed.
Right. Well, I think the big thing to talk about is we should be getting on with it. Look, we've let everybody else get ahead of us. We let the Chinese get ahead. We've got the Germans get ahead. Everyone's getting ahead, and we're buying it all from them. And for goodness sake, this is the biggest business opportunity on the planet. Let's get with it. Let's go move forward, and let's make the best commercial opportunity of it. And as you just introduced, actually talk a cost of living crisis and energy crisis. In doing it, what we're actually going to do is solve the energy crisis and solve the cost of living crisis all into the bargain and see an age of prosperity. What's not to like?
Well, the 8 billion tonnes of coal that's going to be burnt next year across the planet?
We have to get away from the burning of the 8 million tonnes of coal.
Tonnes.
And get into actually using the right sources of energy to fuel the commercial. But if we don't get at the front of it, we're going to lose out. I mean, we're seeing targets that are going ahead of us all the time. We've been warned by numbers of others that we were ahead of the game, and now we're not. And if we want to get ahead of the game, see jobs coming from it, see improvements both in our prosperity and in the money that's available to people, we've got to get at the front of the game and not be at the back of the queue. June,
Slater, do you agree with everything Ed says?
No, not a word, actually. I've been looking at the Paris Accord quite detailed. China is allowed to continue to use and build coal-fired power stations. It can continue to use coal-fired power until 2070. India has already told the Paris Accord people that it's going to try and kind of get neutral by 2070. The thing is, this goal to neutral for Great Britain isn't that big a deal, because we're only just over 1 to 3%, depending on when you measure it. Now, when you look at the rest of the world around us, you've China spewing out 26%. I'm just wondering what this dot of an island in the Atlantic, when it gets to neutral, there we are, we're just at over 1 to 3%, depending on who measures it. And there's a day going to come when someone reads a graph and goes, we're at carbon neutral. What happens? What's changed then? How is the atmosphere benefiting from that small change? Because
where one needs, doesn't someone follow, June? Is there not an argument to say that, if England sets the example, if Britain sets the example, that, other countries will follow?
Well, places like China follow what they want to do. There's nearly, 2 billion people in China. And at Chinese New Year, which is before COVID started, 1.2 billion Chinese made 3 billion journeys across land and sea, internationally and internally. They aren't going to stop doing that because we've got to carbon zero. The more important thing here, and I'm coming at it from a public perspective, is, for instance, let's take Chris Skidmore's recent document. He's launched his Mission Zero because he feels, like Ed does, that we should get on with it and get there and blah, blah, blah. This is a really middle-class argument. And whilst I live like a middle-class person because I've got my heating on, I come from a working class background and I deal with working people all the time. I'm getting messages from people, old couples, who are seriously thinking of ending their life because they can't afford to heat their homes. Now, that's just normal mushies, a woman in Bacup, people that don't matter on this great innovative push for net zero. But these people matter very much because they're entitled to a life. And unfortunately, I see a climate industry that if it was actually serious, I think Ed's quite serious, and I've looked at some of his business plans, and they're quite good ideas. There's no way we're going to get to neutral unless we use nuclear power. What we shouldn't have to do is sacrifice the day-to-day lives of people here on the planet to get to some goal that only half the scientists agree on. People keep saying the science is finished. No, it's not, and I'll show you why it's not finished. On the day that Greta Thunberg made a famous speech at the UN 2019, that got wall-to-wall coverage. So the science that Ed believes in, and I believe him to be sincere about that, is just getting the publicity. It's not necessarily correct.
Well, let's let Ed get a word in edgewise. I mean, Ed, it's a very compelling argument that people who can't afford anything, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, are coming to the view that it might be better to end their life. What do you have to say to those people, Ed?
Obviously, don't want anybody to be ending their lives in any circumstances whatsoever. June's making an amazing point. I mean, she's absolutely right. And what we've done is we're now, at the moment, we're putting our price cap guarantees on, which is to help people who are in difficulties. Whether we're helping them enough or not is a different issue. But what we're not doing is getting out and solving the problem. I mean, blimey, if we'd taken 60 billion and we put it into insulating homes and putting solar panels on top, we could have solved the problem for about 10 million households in the UK, and they wouldn't be having this issue. So what we need to do is get on top of the problem now, get ahead of it, get some leadership going, which I know that you've been very critical of current government and the Conservative Party for lacking leadership. And let's get forward and push this agenda and make people's lives better. And that's, as June pointed out, that's something we can do immediately.
Is there any chance, Ed and June, I want an answer from both of you, is there any chance in hell that we're going to get to net zero by 2030?
No.
Who wants to go? You go first, June.
No, the simple reason is it's not realistic. And the reason it's not realistic is that world leaders are politicians. Ed's kind of a politician, but he's not pushing the agenda. You cannot expect normal people in this country or any other country to take people seriously who fly a motorcade in to talk to people at COP20, whatever it was, with a president and all his entourage and people using private jets. You cannot expect us to take it seriously when 3,000 to 4,000 people currently sit in Davos using white fluffy towels that are washed every day in a washing machine. Think of the sea. You cannot expect us to take people seriously when they have put masks on the public that end up in the ocean. Got to remember that healthcare workers don't put their masks in rubbish bins. They go in an incinerator in a proper place. We know that masks don't do anything for the transmission of viruses because the virus is too small. So let's get some proper government. Let's get people who are bold enough to come out and say, hands up, we know the mask didn't work. We did it because you were scared of going shopping. The old people were scared. They call us the blue pound, by the way, in my generation. We were too scared to hit the cafes, so let's give them some security. Let's give them a blanket, give them a mask. And then we can see it on a dolphin in the sea 6 months later. That's out of order. Start getting real with the people instead of nanny state in this country. We're all capable of avoiding infection to a pretty good degree.
Right.
We don't need
absolutely right. Let's let Ed respond to that, June.
I think, June, I mean, exactly right when we're talking about all these people flying around the world pontificating on everything. And in fact, I was commenting on Nick Ferrari's show, actually, about whether or not we should have so many people flying into COPs and that sort of thing, which aren't working. So I'm with you on that. We shouldn't be having that happening. It doesn't help us. On the other hand, we've got to get a grip of this thing and we need to get ahead. So we need to get leadership and we need to get ahead. 2030 net zero is actually possible. There is no question that if we set those targets and we let British innovation get at it, if we let British finance get at it, if we let people actually go there and do it, we can make it. Look, at the moment, other European countries are bringing their targets forward in order to usurp our position as leadership on this. Now, we can take control of the decarbonisation revolution and move forward, and we can make it to 2030 carbon zero. And if we do, we will see in the 2030s prosperity. So an upgrade in our standard of living, the opportunity to be at the front and sell our innovations on to the rest of the world.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that is a fairly optimistic thing. But how do you envisage this? You look at an electric car, for example, and it takes up, 70% more natural rare earth minerals to build an electric car than it does a fossil fuel-driven car. Well, you know, how many kids are going to go and have to mine cobalt forests in the Congo to deal with that, Ed? Doesn't sound very optimistic to me.
No, I have to say, there's issues in all of the industries at the moment, but if you don't give the right targets, you don't get the right reaction. I mean, if we set a target of 2030 decarbonisation, if we lead the world, then you see one CEO, one managing director going to do it, one set of government, and everybody concentrates their mind on it, focuses, and we move forward. If we've got this wishy-washy, 25, 27 years away, we don't see leadership. We kick it down the road. We try and get elected at the next election without doing anything on it. Or as an MD, we kick it off to the next MD, taking on a company's role. Yeah,
or some old people lie in their beds thinking of ending their lives. June, final word to you, please, very quickly.
It's not, we don't see it like that at all. The real people want to go to Benidorm for the holidays. They want to continue flying, and they want the people with the jets to stop. They want a proper government that backs out of their lives, backs away from their lives. New builds, yeah, insulate them, get them on different power structures, but let's stop this business that somehow you think the ordinary people of Great Britain are bothered about getting to net zero. No, they are most definitely not. They are bothered about...
It's not what the stats
say. There you have it.
It's not what the stats say, June. 82% do want to get there, and that's what the stats show.
All right, darlings, calm down. I would like to thank my guests, Ed Gemmell, leader of the Climate Party, and social commentator June Slater.